What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the show. Today, joining me is the VP of Marketing from OnQ Financial, Pamela Herrmann. Pamela, how you doing?
Great, Jordan. Thanks for inviting me on.
I'm excited to have you on and get into this conversation. We talked a lot off air about some good stuff. So, before we get into some of the challenges, that are facing brands today around messaging and how do you stand out? I want to first pass the mic to you and let you set the table for the listener. Give us your background. It's a little bit unique from maybe what we usually hear from those who've done consulting and worked in corporations. So give us the rundown. How'd you get into this crazy world of marketing and to where you're at today?
So it was interesting in the early days of local marketing. I was contacted by somebody in my network, and they said, "Hey, we're going to put together a small mastermind, and what we're going to be focusing on is Facebook paid ratings and reviews, and basically how do we drive local traffic." And again, this was probably 12 years ago, so early days, right? And I just leaned right into it. I'm like, "This looks really exciting. I'd love to be able to help what I would call Main Street businesses." These are the people who have the courage to hang their shingle up and just go all in on their idea. So anything I can do to help put, borrower or buyers or customers on their path who are looking, especially in those early days of mobile, right? That's really what I wanted to focus on. So, I spun around in that area, really worked a lot with economic development, speaking around the country, helping Main Street businesses with these concepts. What happened was I started getting a lot of clients that were bigger than Main Street businesses, and one of them was a technology company. They were in mortgage lending technology, and they said, "Hey, we could use your help." So I came in as a consultant. Eventually, they offered me a full-time role, and so I literally went like a salmon swimming upstream. I went in the opposite direction than most people. I went from consulting into corporate, and, from there, working 4 to 5 years with this organization, I went into lending on the lending side of the house. So, the people that were my customers, I was now working for one of them, and here we are today with OnQ Financial.
I love it. Now, what was that like getting you know, a a boss and things like that? Like that to me seems like something people who are in the consulting or entrepreneurs they get used to that the freewheeling nature of it a little bit, right? And like I set my own schedule, I have my own
Mhm.
thing, I have a direct set of deliverables that I go in. I'm kind of a mercenary, so to speak, at these companies, and I can come in and really help with maybe one part of the funnel or what have you. So how was that like getting into because I've never done it, so I'm very interested on like what's that like, from the
How
first
do you
day in,
do that?
right? Yeah, like I'm very intrigued.
So there are positives and negatives or pros and cons to every scenario. You're spot on. When I was a consultant, time freedom is the thing that I valued the most. My son at the time was playing high school baseball. He was playing club ball. I could travel when I wanted to, take my laptop with me, and I absolutely loved every single day of the week. As a matter of fact, I didn't even know what days of the week were, right? It just didn't have any relevance to my world. Moving into a 9 to 5 structure was definitely painful for me, but the thing that kept me awake, I would say I would wake up at 3 AM with cold sweats was my pipeline. When I was a consultant, I was always worried about, what's gonna happen 4 months out, and, so good chunk of my time was spent on business development, and that just comes with being a consultant. So, while that was a pain point or a challenge while I was a while I was a consultant, when I moved into a full-time role, swear to God, Jordan, 2 years after I started, I would still be surprised when I would see money in my checking account just magically appear, because I used to have to hustle so hard for that, and when it would just magically appear, I was like, "This is lovely. This is exactly like, I get to now do the work." And
Right.
so there are trade-offs to it. So doing the work, was what I love to do. I love doing production. Having a boss now, I was really lucky because this guy was an old school marketer. He didn't know a lot of the new media type of approaches to market, didn't really understand digital as well. Like, he was a marketer from the '80s. But he gave me a lot of latitude. He gave me a very long leash to ideate on a high level, to really explore what the business could look like. with absolutely no restraints, and gave me a big budget. And so I could not have asked for a better transition point. He just really let me do my thing, and it was beautiful. It was wonderful. Loved it.
I love it, and I think that's one of the things that, uh, from the outside looking in, that corporate structure gives you the ability to really, okay, I got one team, one goal, one project. I have to worry about seeing this all the way through and getting us to launch date or whatever number we have to hit, or building that one brand, opposed to in the consulting game, it can be I got client A, client B is coming to the end of their term, and I got to get client C up and running, and it's like that. Waking up in the cold sweats is very much. I've been there. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
well, and it I mean, you raise a really good point, Jordan, which is that, when you're in consulting, okay, you have this width and you have to have really good depth across all these different skill levels that encompass marketing. And it's getting wider and it's getting deeper, right? With every day that ticks by, technology is changing so much about the way we market. About consumer behaviors are changing and how they're using technology, and we have to be able to map our work to theirs, to their behaviors. Economics are changing. And so with all of these market forces changing, when you're a consultant, you have to be able to bring it full tilt in whatever thin slice of your offer they're gonna take advantage of, right? So going into consulting, really challenging. This was one of the reasons why I really leaned into it. I just had a natural curiosity. Would my end-to-end um, array of offerings work in a corporate structure, right? So I know that it works on a consulting, but I've never really had my entire process stacked up end to end with one organization and test the whole thing. And I was so relieved to see that it did. And so it validated a lot of my just unique approaches to marketing. And that was just a huge win for me on a personal level.
I love that, right? To hear that too, to be like, oh, it like the stuff I was selling and doing, it works, and to see it come
It
to
actually
fruition.
works.
Yeah, like that kind of,
Well, but
you know, the
it's
validation kind
interesting,
of, right?
Jordan, because yeah, now we've got a huge team that I'm managing. So what's happened with my depth of expertise, it's actually gotten shallower. I can't know everything to the degree that I did when I was consulting. I'm managing people, I'm managing the technology, I'm managing the processes and everything that we're doing to improve the way we go to market. So what I'm seeing is that my expertise level has gotten, where it might have been 6 feet deep before, now we're up to 1 feet, but it's gotten wider, right? So it's, again, it's trade-offs, but now I'm parlaying that deep knowledge into great, how do we execute against this broader business objective? Like I'm really embedded in driving revenue for the organization. That's a completely different deliverable than you would see as a consultant.
100%. How is that now, managing a bunch of people? Has that been, uh, like, were you a lone wolf before, kind of when you were a consultant? Would you come
Totally a
in
lone
like a
wolf.
surgeon and kind of fix whatever was needed to be done? And now you have
Yeah.
direct reports and people coming at you with requests and stuff, personal things, and you got a coach, and like, how does that all work out?
Yeah, it's challenging in large part because the entrepreneurial spirit that I know that I have, not everybody has, right? And I can't coach or even expect people to think the way I do because I just recognize that it's unique and it comes from a different place. And I just call it scrappy. There's just a scrappiness that I have. There's just a curiosity, the ability to synthesize information quickly and make decisions. Very few people have that. So how do you manage, hold people accountable, level people up so that they can meet me where I am? That's really where I've had to be very adaptive and say, okay, well, what is an acceptable quality of work, knowing that I work at a different level. And I don't say that to sound egotistical. It's just I
This is
want
real.
things done this way. It's real. I have a very high expectation for deliverables. And so the challenge from, just coaching personnel around that is to say, "Here's what my expectation is on the quality of work, and I'm sharing this with you because what you shared with me was your career aspirations, and I'm here to help you get to that
Right.
point. And my expectation is if you want this over here, here's where you need to level up. And I can take you there, but I'm not going to drag you. Like you're going to have to meet me on the path. And so coaching them around their aspirations and less about what I want from them is really the angle that I've taken on it. And that way I get a higher level of ownership and just say, do you want it or do you not want it? This is your
Yeah,
call.
I've always approached that. It's interesting you say that because I think you're spot on. I've always approached it on like I played sports my whole life. I ended up, yeah, went to college, played, and it was like good coaches, bad coaches, right? And had a bunch of them. And it was always the good coaches were like, I need you, like the feedback was instantaneous. You're not good enough. Say I threw an interception or something, right? Hey, you threw the ball to the wrong guy. I need you to throw it to the right guy because we are trying to win as a team. And it's like, oh, boom, boom, boom. And I could process it easy, right? It wasn't like throw it to that guy because I want you to, right? And I've always thought about it like that too with coaching is letting people know the vision, where we're going, why. And then for them too, individually, hey, you want to get to here? Okay, I'm going to help you get there. But like you're saying, giving that feedback, you want to be world class. Everybody says they want to be world class, but then it's like if you do, okay, here's the pathway to do so, and here's the pathway to do that work. Um, so I absolutely love that. Uh, I do want to transition the conversation a little bit to a challenge that a lot of brands face, um, and you are navigating it right now with On Q, which is when you have a bunch of different personas, you have, or even just business models, B2B, B2C, B2B to C. I thought I was going to mess that one up, but I got it.
It's a lot of letters.
How do you go about that in one, prioritizing a channel? Um, Maybe not from a monetary perspective, but from a brand perspective. Two, not risk coming across as kind of like the we're everything to everybody brand, which is a challenge and people go through that. Like, how are you all approaching growth, but in the same way, carving out the niche or saying, hey, this is the company we are, here are the customers that we help. Like, I know in housing and mortgage, you can't, you can't break down the customer too much, but the ideal customer for y'all, like what is, I guess, how do you handle that challenge with all those different
Yeah, no,
business lines?
you're spot on. There's inherent complexities with the business model of OnQ Financial. We lend directly to consumers or to borrowers, so there's the D2C. We have a B2B element through our recruiting of loan originators, right? That's how we grow revenue is we recruit people who bring a book of business over, and we do everything in our power from a marketing perspective to support their growth, right? Then we have another business line that is all about working with credit unions and community banks. So we'll buy the loans
Hmm.
that they have taken application for and closed. We'll pick that up and we'll put it into our portfolio and nurture those borrowers. So there's that angle. And when you think about that, in addition to the OnQ brand as a whole, you can see already the inherent complexities. We have different business drivers that drive revenue forward. We have different personas within each of them. We have different solutions for each of them. We have different sales strategies for each of them, and marketing is working with each of these lines to support them. So that's not one marketing plan, that's 4 marketing plans. So already we've taken what one business might be dealing with, one business model, and that's inherently complex. And then you multiply it by 4, and you can see like you've just taken the red pill and you're now in the matrix. And it's a very dimensional game, a lot of complexities. What you layer on top of it, these market forces I was talking about. Okay, we're in a commodity business. People are shopping for mortgage loans based on price. And when you're a commodity, and you're only being shopped on by price, then the only differentiator are your people.
Right.
Perhaps your processes, maybe a little bit of technology, but for most part, it's about the relationship and how are you doing it differently. So when I think about branding across all of those different business lines, what I'm always looking for in a sea of sameness, because we're in a commodity, what are we going to do to stand out? And so to me, I always go to funny, quirky, how can we just take something that's super painful for borrowers and just come across as being real, right?
Yeah.
And where are the notes that we can take from other industries where they have to kind of snap that experience as a audience and say, "Wow, these guys are different. They're goofy." And I like that. It's relatable. So that's really the angle that I'm taking with this whole thing is just make us very different.
It's interesting, right? Because in the mortgage space in particular, when you have not only do you have to build the brand and people have to trust, hey, when I do an application and give you money, this is real and I have title on the home and blah, blah, blah. But two, um, I'll, the brand is being represented by MLOs, right? LOs and or loan originators for the listener. So people who are actually going, kind of like your account rep, so to speak. And they're so you have to go through and they're representing the brand every time too. So it really comes into like
That's right.
not only getting people who have a big book of business, but also people who can do business the way that aligns with your company, right? Where it's like the whole shark salesman type, just get them in. We just got to get loans processed, lowest number. That's who. All right, that's going to have ramifications on the back end, and that's in any business. Um, it how much of the messaging, or is there training, or like how do you get the loan originators to really encompass the brand and represent it, I guess, the way the company would like? Does it start with recruiting and
I
just making
love
sure
this.
you get the right people in?
Sure. Great question. I love that you tapped on this because this is again, when you think of the complexity of the model, you have the overarching on cue brand, right? We have very clear messaging around that. But then you have these loan originators who have their own personal brand. And where I really just immediately went for a drill site, and this tapped back into my consulting days, working with entrepreneurs on Main Street. It's no different what these guys are doing. You've got to build that personal brand. You've got to understand how to locally market. You've got to know your competition because you're fighting for every deal that's out there in your community, right? So building that personal brand to me, this is where I go deep with them. So from a retention standpoint, when you're in a commodity business, you've got to think about what additional value can I add that can make this experience better for them. So I immediately went to let's drill down into helping them build a personal brand. So when we did our ideal customer profile of this loan originator, we said we really want to find these people that are in that mid tier, people who have perhaps leveled out. We've now moved out of a refinance market. Interest rates are going up. We're now back into a purchase market. This is where the rubber meets the road with your brand. You're really going to know what your brand value is because money's not walking through the door with when it did with a refi market. So now what we're doing is really deeply embedding and adding that additional layer of value to say, let's help you now reset your personal brand. Let's do a full audit. How do you show up in Google? How are you showing up locally? And now let's come up with a strategy, a brand strategy for you. Content, everything that has to do with social, ratings and reviews. Let's just really amplify who you are in the market. That's where the drill site is for me to really, like I said, add additional value. And I think it's huge value because this is where they're going to grow and add more revenue. Good for them, good for our brand. And
Yeah.
then at the same time, really helping to anchor back to those brand values and making sure the values of the organization are being fed through their brand.
I love that, right? It's that whole thing of if you treat this is for any business. If you train the people who are your front lines and the people who are communicating with customers properly and really invest in them, invest in their development, see where their aspirations are, like what you were saying at the start, maybe with other team members, that's going to permeate down through to the end customer. And they're going to say, oh, I like working with OnQ. It's the same way. And for a listener, if you're like, I don't know, maybe, okay, if you walk to a W hotel and let's say somebody named Steven helps you at the front of the W hotel, you don't walk away and say, oh, Steven was really great. You walk away and say, the W hotel is really great. And that's the difference that we have to lean into. So that's something I think that we can take and look at it from really any business line is like customer service is serving the customer. And if you do that right, you're going to see your business grow. Um,
100%. I was gonna say, no, this is well-researched territory. People will drive further and pay more for great service. So, that's unequivocal at this point in time. That experience and everything to me is about the experience. Used to be about engagement. Engagement was kind of the metric we were going for. Now it's like, deliver a great experience, those engagement numbers will follow. It's just a lagging indicator that you're delivering awesomeness, right? So that's really the cream of the crop. So I think of loan originator experience. So they're my internal customer. I want to make sure they have a 5-star experience from my marketing team, right? So that's primary job. I know that if we can deliver 5-star, they're gonna refer their other loan originator friends to our business, so that's good for everybody. By extension, they're gonna understand what that model of excellence looks like, and they're gonna extend that to their borrowers. So it's really just got this beautiful multidimensional benefit to the organization. So we really anchor back to everything's about experience for us.
I love that. I think that's a good place for us to wrap this one up. Pamela, thank you so much for coming on today. For anybody who wants to, one, connect with you online, and two, learn more about OnQ, where should they head?
Well, you can always find me lurking around in LinkedIn. So just look for Pamela Herrmann. There's 2 R's, 2 N's. Happy to connect with you there. OnQFinancial.com is where you can learn. Please don't judge me based on the website. We're in the process of redesigning it. So no judgment, please, for us on that one. That would be awesome. But Jordan, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. I feel like I could talk to you for hours.
Amazing. No, this has been a lot of fun, a lot of learning. Um, Thanks again for coming on. Everybody, thanks for listening. As always, I'm your host, Jordan Shelton, and I will catch y'all next time.